afternoon to you, 5:05 the time. Tom Swarbrick with you here on LBC. In central London this morning, another protest from Just Stop Oil, a slow march through the city, bringing the kind of fury from motorists that we have, to be fair, come to expect. Nothing, though, compared to the fury generated by shutting the QE2 bridge, the Dartford crossing.
I'm willing to do this kind of thing because I'm not willing to sit back and watch everything I love burn for the rest of my life.
Morgan Trowland and Marcus Decker scaled the bridge. They closed it for nigh on 2 days, causing gridlock for miles around and delaying, we're told, more than 500,000 drivers. The two protesters were charged and found guilty of causing a public nuisance. Sentencing them, the judge said that the pair, quote, plainly believed you knew better than other people and were thinking, to hell with everyone else. He said, you have to be punished for the chaos you caused and to deter others from copying you. That deterrent meant prison sentences of 3 years for Trowland and 2 years and 7 months for Decker. Sentences that both have now begun, and this afternoon we took a phone call from a prison.
It will be logged and may be recorded and or monitored. If you do not wish to accept this call, please hang up.
LBC reporter Charlotte Lynch has the story.
Marcus Decker is 34 and a qualified teacher. He's one of the two protesters jailed for scaling the QE2 bridge over the Dartford crossing last October. He was sentenced on Friday and he received 2 years and 7 months. His co-defendant, Morgan Trowland, got 3 years. Now, Marcus agreed to speak to me for LBC from his prison cell after that sentencing was handed down on Friday. I spoke to him this lunchtime and we have this exclusive first reaction from him to his sentence, which the judge did make clear is lengthy to make an example of the pair.
It is a long time. I got 2 years, 7 months, as you said. My co-defendant, Morgan, got 3 years, which I believe is the longest sentence that anyone in this country ever received for nonviolent direct action for a protest. And that's obviously quite a strong statement that the judiciary, that this judge chose to make there. I wasn't expecting for it to be that long, but at the same time, you know, it's the situation we're in is so serious. The action is so urgent, and yeah, we have to act now. The changes need to happen, and I'd much rather be in prison for 2 years and 7 months than knowing about all the children and the people dying around the world and not doing anything about it, you see.
So you don't regret what you did?
Well, it's a terrible thing to climb up a bridge, hold up all these people. Some people, you know, missed funerals, and I feel terrible about that, causing people pain, real pain. I really hope we can find ways to have a similar impact without that pain, but I'm certainly at a loss how to.
Yes, they did it to get their message across, but in the process, of course, delayed tens of thousands of drivers, of citizens going about their daily lives. They missed work, hospital appointments, some missed funerals, as Decker and Trowland hung in hammocks at that terrifying height for 36 hours, displaying a huge orange Just Stop Oil banner. I asked Marcus Decker what he would say to people who agree with his sentence.
I feel very sorry for those that were inconvenienced by our action. But at the same time, we have to look at the bigger picture. And I believe that those stuck in traffic and those inconvenienced by our action would consent to what we did if they knew the full scale of the pain and suffering and, you know, the humanity of those already losing their lives every year, every day now, in countries around the world that have, you know, that are least responsible for this climate and ecological emergency that we find ourselves in. And if this crisis isn't acted upon, it will have consequences worse than a nuclear war.
Do you think it's right that you will spend the next 2.5 years in prison and your colleague will spend the next 3 years in prison as things stand? Do you think that's right?
No, because of the wider situation. I mean, if someone had climbed the Dartford crossing for a completely different reason, then I would expect that to be, threshed out in court like it was with us. We were able to explain to the court and give evidence on the crisis that we are in right now, and I believe that, the situation wasn't taken into consideration. I don't think we should be sentenced to such high punishments. The judge made it very clear that it is to punish us for what we did, and that it is to deter other people. But no, I mean, I'd rather join the movement than be dead. They will never, they can throw at us what they want. They can never crush this movement, as there's nothing worse than losing everything.
So the pair did speak in court about the climate crisis. They justified their actions by citing things like the UK heatwave last year, which saw temperatures reach over 40 degrees Celsius. And as you heard, Marcus believes for that reason, their sentences should not have been as high for causing a public nuisance. Of course, it's not written into the law that things like the climate crisis would result in that sentence being more lenient for that punishment. Now, sentencing them on Friday at Southend Crown Court, Judge Collery KC told them you have to be punished for the chaos you caused and to deter others from copying you. As you heard Marcus say there, he doesn't believe it will. The judge told them that they believed they knew better than everyone else, adding, in short, to hell with everyone else. And he said, by your actions, you caused this very important road to be closed for 40 hours, noting the disruption affected many tens of thousands of people, some very significantly. Now, Marcus seemed positive when I spoke to him earlier, despite that lengthy sentence ahead of him. He spoke about being in jail with criminals convicted of violent offences, of things like robbery too. And he said he's spoken to many of them about what he did and why he did it. He said that people seem very engaged and he's spreading his message within the prison walls. Now, he did say he wouldn't do it again because he believes he's got his message out there. And I had to ask him, of course, about the impact on his own loved ones. How have your family reacted to your sentencing?
Yeah, like my partner and her children, we living together as a family. It's very hard to have that disruption to our family life, and likewise my mother and my brother, and everyone is shocked at the long sentence, and however they do understand the reasons why I've chosen to take this action, and they're very supportive of what I've done.
So that's the disruption to his family because of the disruption that he and Morgan Trowland caused to thousands of others.
Charlotte, great report. Thank you very much indeed. LBC reporter Charlotte Lynch speaking to one of the two men who scaled that QE2 bridge, the Dartford crossing, and hung there, as you heard Charlotte say, for nigh on 2 days. I wonder whether if you are someone who marches at an Extinction Rebellion protest, or you align yourself with those of Just Stop Oil, whether you see this man as a hero, whether you see him as, in some senses, having been martyred by a lengthy prison sentence. I think the idea of suggesting that his prison sentence is unreasonably long because of the climate crisis misunderstands what the judge is there to do. And there is no judge in the world who's going to say, well, yes, we are worried about global temperatures, so we're going to see some time off your prison sentence. Or do you think it is just too long for an act that is non-violent, for a peaceful climate protest? Do you think it is unfair, harsh and unnecessary? 0345 6060 973 84850 to text. I wonder in what sense you may even feel sorry for him, that he is not able to see his partner, his partner's children, because he's going to be spending a heck of a long time in prison, believed to be the record sentence for a peaceful climate protest, because of what he did. Would it deter you from doing similar in the name of climate change? You might remember we were on air at the time, back in October, when the Dartford crossing was blocked by two climate change protesters from Just Stop Oil who were, fair play. They scale. I wouldn't ever dream of going up that. It looked absolutely terrifying, swinging in a very, very strong wind up at the top of the QE2 bridge for hour after hour after hour, shutting the thing down for nigh on 3 days, causing chaos for 500,000 motorists who couldn't go on the bridge or through the tunnel because it was all shut. They have been given, in the context of what they did, which is causing a public nuisance, lengthy prison sentences. And you've heard from one of them this afternoon from prison on LBC saying, not sure I should have got a sentence that long, particularly based on the climate crisis itself. The judge should have taken that into account and made it less unreasonable and less unjustifiable. What say you? Mark's in Putney. Mark.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I wanted to phone up about Darren Abbott, but I was just listening to the protesters. So I've watched a lot of science as well, but I just think I think he deserves what he got. I mean, he's caused so many people problems. People couldn't get to work, they couldn't see their family loved ones before they passed away, and the judge was doing this as a deterrent to stop him from doing it again, because they keep seeming like they think it's okay to cause a nuisance to everybody in the planet, in the country. I mean, other scientists don't believe in exactly what they say. If you go online, you can see that some scientists are saying that the sun's heating up the planet, and the sun is causing the other planets in our solar system to heat up as well. So I mean,
well, I think Mark, we can let's absolutely agree that global temperatures have been rising consistently for some time, and that the effects of fossil fuels and man-made climate change are real, because again, that's what the majority of the science is saying. I don't think really that has an effect on the length of this guy's sentence, because to be honest, he's done his job, hasn't he? He made his protest, he got the message out there, he said what he had to say, and now he's being punished for it.
But he hasn't done his job, because people are still going to have to use the fossil fuel. But I mean, like I said, other planets are heating up, so there's other scientists that don't believe in exactly what he's saying. Like, if you go online, you can check it. I mean, even if you took an example like the sea temperature's rising. The sea temperature doesn't rise without a heat source. So if we pumped as much gas and CO2s in the atmosphere, they're not going to start boiling the sea unless the sun's heating up. I mean, if you look every day that you see the sun.
Mark, listen, I can't pretend to be a climate scientist, but then I suspect unless you're going to tell me other. Oh, okay, you're not either. Fantastic. So we both agree. Neither of us are climate scientists. So I'll leave it to the climate scientists, who, in the main, agree that the global temperature is becoming a bit of a problem, more than a bit of a problem. Mark, thank you. Nevertheless, that actually doesn't mean that one should oppose the fact that this guy has a long sentence. I think it's probably quite right that the full extent of the law is used to make sure that people don't take this kind of action again. As we're seeing it with Extinction Rebellion, they're slightly changing tactics to make the same point, but without inconveniencing, in this case, in the case of what happened on the Dartford crossing, more than 500,000 people. Kush is in Cricklewood on this. Hi, Kush.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
So I think the actions that they have taken are in no way criminal, because I think that they are an act. Well, because I think that they are an act of self-defense. I mean, by all means, they blocked a road. They blocked a road. They caused a lot of disruption and delay to people. But we do know that self-defense. Yeah, because we know that the climate crisis is going to kill millions of people. They themselves may not be immediately about to die because of the climate crisis, but there are people across the world. If you look across to the Horn of Africa now,
Kush,
there have been famines occurring.
In what way is it then self-defense?
Okay, well, self-defense on behalf. I don't know. Maybe it's not self-defense. But
right. Okay. So what you've said. Okay. So let's start again, because what you've said there is obviously rubbish. So start again. They shouldn't. It's not a criminal offence because.
Well, my point is that they are acting to try and help protect the lives of millions of people across the world.
In your view.
And so when you, not in my view. I think in the view of the world's leading scientists, who say that any further warming that we're going to see is going to put millions of people's lives at risk.
Right, but
it's going to put billions. It's going to put billions of people forced to move because they will not be able to live in the areas of the world where they are currently living.
Okay, so the person who is not able to use the bridge for day after day after day, who says, you're not acting on my behalf, thanks, chum, come down and let me get on with my day, you say to them, no, sorry, he is acting on your behalf, he's doing you a favour, so no, it's not a criminal offence. Come on, Kush.
Yeah, I mean, just last year we saw a 40-degree heat wave, and that took 1,600 people's lives in the UK. Mm-hmm. this climate crisis is already affecting people right here in the UK.
Yeah.
The empty shelves that we saw in the supermarkets earlier this year, it was only a few salads and tomatoes that were affected. But this is the effect of climate change.
It
causes crop failures.
I'm sure, absolutely, I agree with you. But I don't want, in the name of protecting me from that,
Yes.
I don't want you to scale the Dartford crossing. Thanks. Can you do something else? Do something else that doesn't disrupt me.
I absolutely agree. I do not want anyone scaling the Dartford Tunnel in order to do this either. And I think that it's really, really sad that it has come to this. If you look at the policy that the government is going down, in terms of continuing to license new oil and gas, which is what these people are trying to say that needs to stop.
Yeah.
Every other political party, every major political party is saying the same thing. The Labour Party agreed with it. The SNP agreed with it.
They don't agree. Sorry, but they don't agree with what Just Stop Oil are demanding, which is that it all ends in 2 years. Nobody agrees with that. It's not possible.
They all agree that there should be no new oil and gas licenses. That is the Labour Party policy right now. So there will be no new oil and gas licenses. It's the same as the Green Party. It's the same as the SNP. The only party that is disagreeing is the Conservative Party,
and
they are
fine
also
to have a
the
disagreement
party
over
that
policy. That's fine.
But they've also
Absolutely.
been the party that received 3.5. Okay,
hang on. It's fine, of course, to have a vehement disagreement over policy, to take to the streets in a disagreement over policy. But let's not try and pretend that they are doing anything for anybody else in terms of trying to protect them or save them or wake them out of their stupor. They tie themselves to a bridge. It inconvenienced a lot of people. It's a criminal offence. They've gone to prison.
But I'm afraid you also need to recognise that this is, unfortunately, also in order to garner public and media interest.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah, and so they were on the media almost 24 hours a day during that 40 hours that they were blocking the bridge. Yeah, and unfortunately, we're just not seeing the climate crisis that we're in discussed enough as though it were really an emergency that we need to face up to. By all means, I'm not saying that it's never mentioned. It is, of course, mentioned. But
do you want media headlines? Do you want time on the radio? Do you want newspaper columns, or do you want politicians in particular to actually change stuff?
I want action. I want action from the politicians.
But I would say there is quite a big difference
for them to make a meaningful commitment.
There is quite a big difference between getting on the radio or getting in a newspaper and actually getting stuff done.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you can't just always be about getting media attention. Otherwise, you're just about getting media attention, not actually changing anything.
I think the tactics that Just Stop Oil are using are an essential part of the wider movement towards effective change.
All right. Kush, I really appreciate your call. Thank you very much indeed. 0345 6060 ring. Charles is in Bagshot meantime. You want to talk about the XR protesters sentenced to these quite lengthy prison times, Charles. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Actually, look, I can understand the passion because, believe it or not, when I first voted in Australia, I voted for Bob Hawke to stop the Franklin Dam being flooded. So my first ever vote was for an environmental cause. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, but I don't have any sympathy. Look, you cannot risk people's lives like this. Look, if you want to surround Parliament and cause havoc for the politicians, great, I'll probably join you. But this is dangerous. What they did was dangerous. It was causing, it's not just people being inconvenienced, people missing hospital appointments. There's people just getting to work. And this is what really is upsetting people. And it's not helping. It's just people are just going to go to the extreme parties. They're just going to go extreme. And this is what happened. That will happen.
What say you, Charles, to Cush's point that they're doing this for you? They're doing this because of the climate crisis, and they're doing this to try and protect you?
Well, first, I don't even have a car. I cycle to work every day. I've cycled to work for the last 11 years. But no, it's the hypocrisy, because I've seen one of the leaders of some of these movements jaunting around on blooming holidays overseas on jetting around.
But it's not her fault, is it, that planes don't run on electricity or sunlight? It's not her fault that the technology hasn't got to the point where she'd like to.
Yeah, but you don't have to go on holiday overseas if you have to fly.
Yeah, but you don't, Charles, presumably you don't like it when they make that argument to you.
Well, no, but I'm not dictating. I'm not turning around and tell people what they must do or where they must go or whatever.
All right. Charles, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. 0345 6060. Sophie's in Burgess Hill. Sophie.
Hi there, Tom. Thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan of the session.
Oh, you're very kind.
So keep it up.
Thank you very much. We love the session. Available on Global Player to download for free.
I just have one question to everyone that's listening who opposes the movement that's going on right now. How would they have felt about the suffragettes during the time that it was all going on? You know, we look back now and, you know, we remember the brave things that they did for democracy, but we forget the really extreme things that they did as well that got them what they achieved. You know, it might not feel extreme to us living in the Western world, living in England. You know, we're not in Africa where they're already feeling the effects of climate change. They are the people who are feeling the effects now, not in 10, 15, 20, 30 years' time. They're impacted today.
Can I tell you, Sophie, why I don't agree with the comparison between what Just Stop Oil is doing and what the suffragettes did?
Yeah.
Because I don't think what Just Stop Oil is asking for is actually possible. They want to stop all oil and gas within the next 2 years. It's not possible if you want to have any kind of functioning economy or people to keep the lights on or to bother getting out of bed in the morning and going to work. And that's terrible, but it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the story when it comes to getting to net zero. What the suffragettes were demanding was of course, very possible. It was a political choice not to do it.
I don't think it seemed possible in the moment. People definitely opposed it in the moment, and people 100% thought that it was never going to happen. We'd never make any profit. The industries were going to collapse because we'd suddenly have to start paying women and giving them a right to vote. And, you know, people opposed it as much as they opposed the climate movement. And okay, yes, 2 years' time to stop all fossil fuels is impossible. But to stop new fossil fuels is a different story.
I agree with you. To stop new is a different story, but that's not what they're asking for. And I just think I understand people's desire to, and I think they're right. You know, I think broadly speaking, they're right. The climate change is a massive problem, and of course, people have got to get their heads around it. But the idea of asking for the impossible and threatening people with further disruption if you don't get the impossible is not the same as what the suffragettes were doing or asking for.
No, perhaps not. Perhaps not, but it's as an extremer comparison as the change that needs to happen. You know, it compares two equal movements that need to happen drastically and urgently. I think we have a government at the moment that release a budget and there's no mention at all of climate change or in any way, shape or form that we can achieve that.
There was mention of climate change in the budget.
Not well, what? How many seconds in comparison to everything else that gets talked about?
So are we talking length of time, or are we talking... What do you want to hear in the budget that would lead you to believe that they're taking this seriously?
Significant change, investment in the right areas. You know,
that's what they're doing. They're pumping billions into the greening the economy. They're pumping more money into. They literally can't give heat pumps away.
How about temporary targeted energy profits levy that didn't give the energy companies a loophole that meant that they could just save money, invest it in new oil?
Well, Sophie, now you're talking possible, and I like it. I like hearing it. Now you're talking
that instead in only renewable energy.
Now you're talking about the possible, Sophie. I like it. Let's force that through. Let's fight. Let's protest about that. Let's go. That's possible. Protesting about the impossible isn't going to get you anywhere, I don't think. Thank you for the call. Oh, Chris is a new caller in Ashford. Hi, Chris.
Hi there, Tom. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. It's just a quick one, really, regarding the obviously what happened with the Dartford thing. In terms of the sentences dished out, I don't think there's any right or wrong. If you break the law, then you take what is coming towards you, whether it's a custodial sentence, suspended, or whatever.
Yep.
Now, in terms of what they were trying to achieve, in my opinion, I think they achieved the complete opposite. I think it gave out many negative messages. If you look at the congestion and the traffic jams and everything else it caused within the local areas, it might with idling cars. All you're doing is adding to the ozone.
But they're saying, Chris, they're saying, whoa, no, come on, some disruption for 24 hours, given the scale of the climate crisis that we are about to face, is nothing as compared to what is coming if people don't wake up, do X, Y, Z.
Yes, but again, people are waking up because there's so much information out there now. And it's my belief, I may be wrong, and I stand to be corrected, I think UK is certainly one of the leading countries in the world that understands and accepts that there has to be change, and there is change.
Yes.
But, some of these people, and again, in my opinion, they have their cause, and I believe it, and I'm behind them in some respects, but they have to look at the bigger picture. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Well, they say, you know what they say about how quickly we've got to go on this, Chris. Listen, I hear you, and I find myself in a not dissimilar position. I broadly agree with them on the specifics of what they're asking for and the way they're going about doing. No, I don't agree with them at all. Chris, thank you very much indeed. Pete's in Bristol. Pete.
Evening.
Hello.
I just want to say I don't think people quite understand what despair is. These people believe the future is over or it's not going to exist. So these kind of like prison sentences and even maybe, financial punishment and stuff don't mean anything because there's nothing in the future anyway.
Well, they must mean... they do mean something. Hearing the chap who's been put into prison for 2.5, he knows that this is going to be a problem for him and his family, and I think wouldn't it act as a deterrent?
I think it will act as a deterrent for some people, but the people that are really there, really believe it, and are really despair, they're basically... It's either I do this and serve prison time and maybe then my kids have a future. Like, ask yourself, if you were so convinced about something and you needed to do something and it would mean saving your children's lives, would you do it, yes or no?
It's very hard to argue with nihilists, isn't it? It's very hard to say, yes, but there's nuance here, if they're going from the position of saying, well, if I don't do something, nothing will exist.
But that's what I'm saying. This is the people we're dealing with. If that's what they believe, they will do anything if it's for their children's future. So, like I said, I think it's despair. And the only thing you can give people that are in despair is hope.
Well, Pete, you make a very good point. And to that point, given these protests are starting up again, I want to speak to a woman called Zion Lights. I don't know whether you remember her. She was an XR campaigner back in the day. She was doing all the things that XR protesters do and realised that wasn't the best way of going about getting the change she wanted. So she's now working in the nuclear industry. So you might be hearing from Zion Lights as those protests gear up in the next few weeks, Pete, because there is hope there. I would agree. Thank you for the call.